Welcome to Part 2. In Part 1, we examined the existing infrastructure on the eastern end of the slackwater navigation of the Wabash and Erie Canal on the West Fork White River in Greene County, Indiana. Today, we're going to examine the western end of the slackwater navigation. What you see before you is the lock and dam at Newberry, Indiana. We are 4 miles downriver from the previous location. The dam would have run across the river from the south bank, or the Newberry side, across to the northern bank. The river right now is about 1.5 feet deep, so a lot of this can only be seen when the river is this extraordinarily low. But we're going to go down and have a close look at all of this material. Before we get started looking at the objects in question in detail, I want to make a couple of notes. The first one is the Newberry Dam itself. The dam is gone. What you're looking at across the river would have been the northern abutment of the dam. The dam has since been demolished, allowing water to pass through without any kind of obstruction. If the dam would have been here, that dam would have been 12 feet above low water. Right now, the river is about 1 feet 6 inches deep, which is about as low as it normally gets. So if this dam would be in place, the river above the dam, or on the right side of your screen, would be 12 feet high. And where we're standing would essentially be underwater. So what we are looking at is the ruins of the bottom of all of these structures. The second thing I want to note are the numerous highway crossings of the West Fork White River above the dam. The bridge you see before you is the Indiana State Road 57 crossing, built about 2015. Now, this bridge replaced an iron bridge that existed here from about 1920 until 2015. Now, in the background, you will see a couple of stone piers. These stone piers are not canal related. They held up a covered bridge that was built around 1879 and existed here until about 1920, when the covered bridge was replaced by the iron bridge, and in 2015 that iron bridge was replaced by the modern concrete bridge you see before you. Now for the good stuff. The little inlet you see there, where it's carved off of the river, is where the Wabash and Erie Canal would fork off of the West Fork White River and leave slackwater navigation and head south toward Washington and Evansville, Indiana. The canal would travel from the previous video location, about 4 miles upriver from our current location, to this point. The slackwater towpath would run on the south bank, or on the right side of your screen, up to this point. The canal boats would then leave the river and come in through a guard lock, which I believe is located somewhere inland from the river. We can see, just come in a little closer, there are still a couple existing cribs that we can see faintly. Right here we can actually see the corner of one of those wooden cribs that are adjacent to the little inlet. Now, the guard lock itself isn't like the previously viewed locks. Previously viewed locks would lift the canal from a certain level down or up to another level. Now, again, remember, the river here was at least 12 feet high. The river right now is only 1 feet 6 inches high, so again, the river level would have been significantly higher than what you're seeing right now. The canal would have just simply, well, drafted into the lock. Now, the lock here would have maintained that 12-foot water level as the canal continues along through that little dark area you see in the middle of your screen. The lock itself was not to control the level of the canal, more so to control how much water came into the canal. And again, that wooden crib, you could see the remnants right here. And this would be what we think is the edge of the lock itself. And amazingly, we come up a little further here. There's even some existing ironwork with a 90-degree iron rod running into the shoreline with 3 bolts, all still intact. And just to show you the relation to this, how it runs in the same as the crib and the inlet itself. And again, this is what we believe to be what is left of the guard lock, where the canal leaves slackwater navigation from the West Fork White River and heads south toward Washington and Evansville, Indiana. Now from the guard lock, we are going to move to the river lock. The foundation of that river lock is now on the left side of your screen. Now, the dam itself would have come across the river from the foundation there over to about the middle part of your screen. And you would have had a lock in place to allow river traffic, steamboats and flatboats who did not want to use the canal, to be able to pass along the river without having to go over the dam, which would have been right about here. The southern edge of that river lock is very intact, and you could see it before you. Again, this is about 400 feet long and has about 17 or 18 cribs of various sizes that run into the hillside here. We are now on the western edge of the river lock for a better look at some of the cribs. Here you can see the timbers, while weather-worn, are relatively intact, and they give you an idea of what a crib would look like. Essentially, timbers would be laid out, and the middle would be filled with scrap stone. Now, these probably went up about 12 feet high, and what you're looking at are simply the foundations, or what's left of the river lock. But again, keep in mind, this has not functioned as a river lock for 170 years, and it's still relatively impressive that this much wood and scrap stone have survived intact. Again, from the western end to the eastern end of the river lock, the southern half of the river lock, that is, that would extend up to the guard lock. The cribs themselves vary in size, anywhere from about 3 feet wide to as much as 10 feet wide, and seem to get wider as you go from the western side to the eastern side. To focus on the Newberry Dam itself, it would have extended across the river about from where the reflection of the trees begin to the existing infrastructure on the northern bank that you can see for yourself. The dam itself is listed as to be 444 feet long, so who knows how far north of the current northern bank of the West Fork White River it would have extended. Old maps show the dam and the river itself being significantly wider on the northern bank than it is to this day. Now, that could be because the river itself above the dam, or on the right side of your screen, would have been maintained at 12 feet deep, whereas today it's only 1.5 feet deep. Before we go, just want to do one last overview of all the infrastructure. This marks the western end of the slackwater navigation on the West Fork of the White River for the Wabash and Erie Canal. The canal itself forks off of the West Fork White River right in the middle of your screen. You can see how the water kind of angles into the little gully there. Somewhere between the water's edge of that gully and the grassy area marks where the guard lock of the Wabash and Erie Canal would be located. For traffic on the river itself that does not want to use the canal, it would pass through the river lock. The southern edge of it still exists today. We're going to follow that southern edge. By the way, in the video I mentioned the river lock was 400 feet long. I actually measured it, and it is 130 feet long. Always measure. And we move up here to the western end of the river lock. And here, river traffic, be it steamboat or flatboat, could pass safely past the Newberry Dam, down the West Fork of the White River, to Petersburg, Indiana, and Mount Carmel, Illinois. I hope you enjoyed this video, just an overview of the Newberry Dam and all the infrastructure tied to it in Newberry, Greene County, Indiana. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.